I want to speak about theory first. And no doubt, we know in Constitutional Law 1 that political dynasties are clearly prohibited in the Constitution, right? But the task was given to Congress. Maybe they had a difficult time defining it. But the point there is the Constitution itself has recognized its inherent evil effects, right? Prohibit political dynasties. And in my own personal opinion and understanding, the real cause or real root problem of the Philippines is not poverty. Poverty is really just the effect. And the root cause really is the inequity, which means from the beginning of the formation of our republic, power has always been concentrated in the hands of a few families, right? And if you look at the history of Congress even, I am speaking candidly about this, almost all of them are like the landed elites that have inherited the encomienda system, and generational wealth being passed on to the next. So it works like that. If a society has a small group of people that hold so much power in a society where there's so much poverty, there's bound to be a rupture sometime, right? So I hope that this conversation pushes finally to fulfill the promise. This is 40 years down the road in the making. But in that 40 years, I have to also share that there is an attempt to already define political dynasties. And we have that in the SK Reform Act, right? I think it is the only law that attempts to define political dynasties. And if you read that law, it limits to 2 degrees. It has a geographic limitation, and it is triggered only if an incumbent is in position. So why am I saying this? Because I think we can learn so many things about the experience of the implementation of the SK Reform Act. We have situations where a father or a son will run together, and what if they win together, right? Under the law, the prohibition is triggered only if the person is an incumbent. So that's something we have to also look into. Second, what is the mechanism for enforcement? Can COMELEC on its own investigate, or do we need somebody to actually file? And there's also a proposal that the candidates have to issue an affidavit declaring their relatives, diba? So is that really an incentive? No. So these are the questions that we have to also think about. And I kind of thought through that the law, for it to be effective, requires 4 elements. And I think that's already discussed earlier by Senator Risa. We have to discuss the depth of relationship. Are we just talking about blood ties? Or should we recognize that political dynasties are like, mura silang barkada ba? Parang it's a very dynamic network. It can move, right? It can adapt. So do we recognize it as only based on a family? But should we also recognize it could also based on economic cohabitation? Those are also interesting things to explore. Second is, what is the trigger? Is it incumbency, or is it the filing of a COC? That can also be something that we have to discuss. Geographic integrity is also very important. Do we limit it to the locality or national, right? Similar to the SK Reform Act. And then the fourth one is enforcement. Disclosure, to my mind, is not enough, right? There should be mechanisms where any citizen can file a case to cancel the COCs, and COMELEC also empowered to do its own thing, motu proprio, to cancel those COCs that violate the law, right? And last point, and I think this has not been discussed very much in political dynasties discussion. I'm now wearing the hat as a director of SUPLA. I think we have to also consider that political monopoly does not only affect economics in the community, right? It also has an impact in access to justice. This is not kind of discussed. It reshapes how the justice ecosystem in the locality works. And it is influenced, to our observation, in three ways. The first one is the soft influence, right? If dynasties are present in localities, they often have the influence in recommending who are the prosecutors, who will be the judges, right? who will be the PAO or other justice actors, even the police, right? So even without any direct interference, these networks can actually erode the trust of the people in the justice system. Second is resource dependency. We've also observed that the judiciary oftentimes asks resources from the LGU. And if the LGU is owned again by one political family, the justice system, even if it's supposed to be an independent institution, parang ma-blur na ang lines. The public becomes the private, right? And then the third one is the third one really is that it creates this atmosphere. If you're a part of a marginalized group and you want to assert your right, you want to invoke the court system, you should think not just about your rights, but you're also going to think about your safety, di ba? Because as what was earlier mentioned, ginabangga nimo ang pamilya, right? With all the resources. So it has some direct effect on accessing justice. And it's important to talk about this because if our access to justice or justice system fails, if the justice system fails, people will look for extrajudicial means of settling their disputes, right? And that would eventually lead to more violence. So at the end of the day, all I'm saying is that political dynasties really is a historical root of our problem, right? And our hope, hopefully, in the civil society is one day we can be confident in declaring that the building blocks of our politics is not family, is not a clan or a network. It should be ideology, program, competence, and it begins with this law.